the events to provide?
They're very, I would say it's a lot more intangible. It really has to do with how does it feel. If it, for example, we supported the event here at Cinemapolis because Cinemapolis drives people down here to do business. We are in the business to help people do business. That's why we supported that. Can I tell you what that looked like or what I got? I couldn't tell you.
But I will tell you this, and this is probably small business stuff as opposed to Ursula's situation. I always appreciate it when someone comes up to me and says, I was at thus and such event, and thank you for sponsoring that. And then someone makes a point to say, thank you, it was really great that you sponsored that event, I really enjoyed it.
If the event could provide like some sort of metric, like let's say a list of email addresses of attendees, would that be of value to you, or data about attendees?
I think that would be above and beyond, and I would actually appreciate that, especially.
But you need to let your attendees know that you're sharing,
right?
When that comes into play is if we have to cut something, then you actually say, well, this one, we might not want to do that because of this.
Robin,
Yeah, that was a game changer what you just said, because I've sold ads before for our programs, but for the first time I'm seeking sponsors, and what you said about getting it all together for the following year, by the fourth quarter of this year, we're also on a calendar year, that just completely changed my entire way of thinking about it. I was actually seeking $500 sponsors for our events. So it sounds like for this year that small businesses are a possibility, but going for sponsors for example, the trust company, I should be looking forward in November for 2016. Yeah, that piece of advice is just worth the price of admission.
okay, we go home now.
Yeah, but I wanted to say something. I went to the Rockwell Museum yesterday, and they gave a talk about sponsorships. And they said, here's just a really good tip. They asked the people at the events to take pictures at the events and share how they felt about the events on social media, but to also make sure to thank the sponsors. And they mentioned that at all of their events. When you see someone from the trust company, it wasn't a trust company, it was courting, please thank them and say what you got out of the event. And that was a really good tip because
Planners should do that. I mean, I offered that as how I gauge return on investment, but planners should always make sure that you thank the sponsors. When it's done, you send them a note, tell them results, how it went.
Yeah.
It's really, if you want to get remembered, that's what you do.
So a follow-up on
Yeah, just a quick. I'll sit down and handwrite a note. Just go, thanks. This is what happened. We were thrilled to have your sponsorship, and it made this happen. So, it takes, it takes 5 minutes to write the note, and it pays dividends like you can't even believe. And when I get those notes from thank you notes, it makes an impact.
We pass those around at the senior leadership team meetings on Monday mornings when those come in. So.
I'm working on one for Jerry right now, but it's not just a thank you note. It's a picture of the event. It's a couple of quotes from people. It's a thank you from the artist. It's a whole heartwarming, tear in your eye.
It'll be very effective.
Yeah.
Oh, I cry easy.
Yeah.
And then just a couple more things. Be sure to include your name, phone number, email address, organization, contact person. I can't tell you how many times I'm searching all over for that, which is a given, right? And then if you need an ad, my colleague Greg Aquavella will like this. Is it black and white or color? What are the dimensions? What's the format that you need? When is it due? Where do you send the artwork to? The email address is just, again, very, very quick.
Do you make ads for people?
We provide ads. So if you have an event, and there's a program, for example.
You should always have a graphic artist on your committee to create those things.
But we'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean,
And
but
when-
to line it up, to lay it out and
For
stuff like
programs.
that.
And don't ever stretch the logo or compress it, or you don't ever touch that stuff, because it matters to whoever's giving it to you, that it looks that way. I've seen that where I'm like, what in the heck is this? And you pay a lot of money for those things, and you want it to be the same way so that everybody, it's brand identity, and it matters.
Your little
because it's-
leaves look like oars or something like that.
So we've had all sorts of things. And on the bottom, what's important to us is really signage, banners, brochures, posters, if you have, take ones and it's got our logo on it. The logo placement, where is it, how big is it? If there's a social media synergy that we can get going between the organizations, we'll happily do that. PSAs, radio spots, if we're sponsoring that, it really should be in there. This event is sponsored by, and whoever it is that's sponsoring it, whoever you get.
Well, at certain levels, I would throw that caveat, don't give that to everybody.
Right.
Your higher end of people get mentioned for their, their
And that's
work.
in what you give them
Right,
as to
exactly.
what level you get,
What
what
level
you
do you get
actually
mentioned?
get. And then announcements at the event, if that's appropriate, that's very helpful as well. So that's all I have. I don't know. How are we on time?
Well, we have about 5 more minutes. Questions, other questions?
I always think that putting the logo on, on our website and the program isn't enough, and that it should have text underneath it. Please support CSP management for your rental and house buying needs. That a logo isn't enough. What are your thoughts on that?
A lot of times, what we'll do, I think it's great to do that extra stuff, and you and I dialogued on that, on that recent sponsorship. But just as good, I think, is a link to the individual's business website.
Yeah,
Because that, really says it all there. That's where, somebody's spent some real time,
Right.
put the face on that business. So links to that, thank yous, the sort of that heartfelt stuff is great, but always a link, on our sponsor page for the AIDS Ride, for the Taste of the Nation, there's always links to people's,
right.
Back to
So
people's
the logo
websites.
should be a link.
yeah, the logo is a link. The logo becomes the link.
Got it.
Are there things that people shouldn't do? Like, think about the, don't give me specifics, but, don't give me names, but, but talk about, like, this is something you just don't do this. This is, 2 years ago, last week, on the way over here, what are the things you don't do?
You have to be, you don't come in and not have, your idea has to be formulated. Like, you can't, sometimes I see people and you feel like they've not thought this all through.
Right, it's like, what do you need from me to get a sponsorship? That's like, well, okay, you probably should be thinking about that ahead of time. You're gonna come across so much more prepared and ready if you came in and said, I'd like to talk about this sponsorship opportunity I have. How can I get this material to you? A lot of people come at you and go, what do you need?
Be professional, in other words.
Right, yeah, it's just sort of, treat it with the professionalism that you expect the business to have back to you. And I think that, don't be afraid either, you're not gonna pick up the phone and call and get always get right through to the person. So I have had my reception person castigated because they couldn't get to me right away to talk to me. The guy comes to me and says, I don't know, this person's pretty irate, you just called and want to talk to you. Some of this stuff is common sense. You just conduct yourself with some level of professionalism that would be representative of the event that you're putting on. Unless you're putting on a brawl, and then I guess, great, just go for it.
Part of my job is to meet with people who are talking about this. I'll have a lot of people that come in and go, I'm not exactly sure what all that you need. And it's okay not to know what format or whatever, but the actual event, you have to understand what that is, because if you don't know that, what else don't you know the day of the event? It's just, there's no, there's no comfort level, and you don't want to be arrogant either. Although that doesn't generally happen. You do end up talking to people, and they're quite nice when they're asking you for something.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
just lovely.
99% of the time. I mean, every once in a while, you get somebody who walks in and goes, that's been doing an event for a long time, and go, well, I don't understand why you don't want to be a part of this. You know, that's, well, okay. I'm glad you don't understand, but, you know, whatever. That arrogance does every once in a while materialize.
I have a question about the, oops, did
Oh,
somebody go?
there.
About the warm call idea. For our asks, I'm getting my development committee, the trustees involved, PRI trustees, and a number of them go on holiday to Florida for half the year. So they tend to call in for meetings and things like that, so they're still actively involved. And they would like to make asks. I'm wondering how, say you have a trustee who does a lot of business with Tompkins Trust and might know you. Are you comfortable with them calling and saying, can we have a phone meeting? I will send you the benefits packet, and we can look at it together over the phone with you looking at via email and PDF or something. Is that just as good as an in-person meeting, or would you rather, which would you choose, the trustee over phone or the person you don't know in person?
You know, I've often been introduced via email. Someone like that, trustee, this is, you know, hey, Jerry, you know, I want to introduce you to this person who's working on this event. You know, I'm supporting it, or, you know, whatever. Would you have a meeting with them? And then
It's a warm call.
you sort of take it off from there. You either go, oh, we can do this by email, send me your stuff, or, hey, why don't you come in and we'll talk about it. But just associating that person that the individual knows with the person you're trying to get to is the main point. That's the main thing you want to try to make that connection, and then let it go from there. And then, because you do have to then sell it on its merits, not simply on, well, what do you mean? The guy just called you up, told you to do this.
What do you think, Ursula?
It wouldn't matter to me, I don't think. I would want to see the materials. And for, like, your organization, I know a lot about your organization. So that's also makes it different. How well are you already branded in the community? Well, PRI and, you know, Museum of the Earth, we already do things with you. So that would be very, very different than somebody I've never heard of off the street and just wants to call and do it. I would say, send me everything, and then we can have a conversation. I always want to see everything, obviously. I prefer to see it ahead of time, because I don't want to waste somebody's time if, in fact, it's something that we're not going to be interested in. Then I can let somebody know that ahead of time. So really, I think it's, are you a known entity or you're not?
So, I mean, last question I have for you, and for both of you, would be, in this community, this is a small community, and I want to tell you guys that, in terms of, particularly in the sponsorship world, the universe of people who get asked is not that big. And sometimes it feels like, for you, probably for both of you, it feels like it's smaller and smaller all the time.
It's really hard.
Yeah, so what advice would you have for people in terms of, you know, reaching out to others and being able to sort of broaden horizons and I mean, it's a struggle I think you deal with, it's a struggle that other people deal with. Just some parting thoughts on that.
It's a finite pool of money. I can't print more. And we try to look at how much do we spend in the arts and in the humanities and all of that. So we absolutely look at that. We look at, is this a brand new event? I can tell you if the trust coming with something brand new, we've had people go, if, what was it, Light and Winter. If the trust company didn't step up to do the Light and Winter, it never would have happened. So we might do that for a year, and we might be very significant for that year, but we can't do that every single year. And we can't do everybody every single year. It's just impossible. There is so much. And and I've actually said, I'll get something in, I go, oh yay, another event. And how are we gonna do this? So really reaching out and getting a broad base of who can support, and it's becoming a real problem because federal money and state money is drying up. More people need to do more with less. It is our number of people who have done significant contributions, like Emerson, for example, they're not around anymore. That was a huge pool of money that is no longer being spent. And Jerry can't pick that up, we can't pick all of that up. So you really have to start looking at, you have to think about that when you're planning that.
It's true, and of course, you know, there's two sides to that coin. You know, I would say to you, well, so go around and look and see whose name you don't see. Look at the newer businesses that are opening up and see if, you know, or businesses that have been around for a year or two, whose names you don't see. And I would say that to you, except that sometimes you'll find out that you say no to everybody. So there's, you know, there's two sides to that, and you can be creative and look, you know, try to identify businesses that are not already being, you know, tapped because you don't see their names anywhere, and approach them and try to have a discussion about sponsorship, because that can be a very special and new way. I mean, it's really about making these toehold, you know, these sort of inroads. You get a toehold and you can build. You know, even if they start out as a small sponsor with your event, you get them in for $500. If they have a positive experience, then you cultivate it and it can grow. But it is a challenge to find, because to Gary's point, it does seem like that while we live in a very generous community in lots and lots of ways, the number of businesses that are able to actually take that bigger picture look and make the contributions does seem to be shrinking. And I don't know why that is. You know, people are finding other ways to contribute, but it is a challenge. And so there may be businesses that you think ought to be participating in community events that aren't, and there may be a good reason, or it may simply be that nobody's asking. It could be just, you know. I know organizations are very fond of coming, you know, I say this all the time, you know, we're really good at making a little go a long way, when really the only thing that goes a long way is a lot. You know, and so it just, you know, it's so true. And you know, you're always looking for how to make that, you know, make that thing become. The way, in other ways that are to offset costs, and I know I don't want to run too much longer, but you know, we do registration fees. That helps offset costs. I mean, always think of that as, you know, those are potential sponsorship dollars. Where you don't go and ask a business. Your participant pays a registration fee. That helps offset costs of participating as well. And then, you know, of course, the other notion which has become so powerful, which is that creating an army of fundraisers in that sense of in the model of the Women Swimming or the AIDS Ride, where people go out and raise the money for you. That metric is that's how you see events that raise $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000 because they are enlisting an army of fundraisers. You're not just selling a single ticket to something. You are actually getting hundreds of people to work for you.
Guys, thank you very much. We've got to the end of this. Thank you, Melissa, and we'll just switch over for our next.